If everyone can take their seats, that would be great.
This is a good problem.
I'm proud of it.
Jake.
Nice one in camera. Congratulations.
No, it's okay. I'll just
Sure.
stand here.
Okay, welcome everybody. Welcome to Data Science Sydney. And also welcome to the Institute of Actuaries, who are the generous sponsors of this event, who supply the venue, the food and the drinks. I'm a member of the Institute of Actuaries Data Science Practice Committee, and where we go about helping enhance the skills of actuaries in data science. And we see great synergies between the data science communities and the actuarial communities, and I think we can learn from each other. Oh yeah, sorry, just go. I don't really have much else to say today because Eugene will probably have more to say. But Eugene, who's one of the founders of Data Science Sydney, and I'll ask Eugene to come to the microphone to give a bit of a map of what tonight's going to look like. Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Eugene, and I usually have a lot more to say. It's going to be one of those nights. Don't worry, I have plenty. A little bit in the way of logistics before we do anything else, and that is, thank you all for coming. You're all here. Some of you are not, and those who are not may be friends of yours. I just want to sort of put it out there that if you're not able to make it to an event you've RSVP'd, please list yourself as not going. That will help us a lot. It wasn't really a problem on this event because we just opened up the entire wait list, but usually when there's a lot of attendees and a whole lot of them don't turn up, they take away places from people who stay on the wait list and don't do the naughty thing and turn up anyway. So yeah, please keep doing the right thing, and please tell your friends to do the right thing. Big thanks, as Bill said, to the Institute for supporting Data Science Sydney. And for those of you who are new, hands up who's new, hands up who's here for the very first time. That's actually quite incredible. As a proportion of attendees, this is one of the bigger, this is one of the bigger new attendee proportions, which tells me that the topic for today is a very salient one. It's one very relevant, very important to quite a lot of you. Before I proceed to the topic at hand, a few additional announcements. One really, and that is that, as mentioned in our last event, there will be an event at the end of this month, which won't be held here. It will be held at the Business School of the University of Sydney. Anyone here from the Business School of the University of Sydney, by the way? Yay. The Business School at the University of Sydney is kindly providing us with a venue for 300 people, whereas this one seats 100. And we need this because we have a world-class superstar presenting. We have Xavier Connaught, Kaggle Grandmaster. I think he was formerly the first chief data scientist of Data Robot or something similar. Certainly one of the founders and certainly instrumental in the creation of that company. And now he's doing something different, along the same lines, actually, along the lines of automated feature engineering. And he wants to tell us all about it. So that event will be announced possibly tomorrow, depending on how lazy I am. Bill knows how lazy I am. It's pretty bad. But yeah, certainly by the end of the week. Otherwise, I really am lazy, aren't I? So on to today's event, which I think is of very, very personal importance to everybody here. Normally you come to Data Science Sydney to hear something that's kind of interesting, possibly kind of relevant, possibly kind of intellectually stimulating, possibly even a good hint from a professional perspective. But today we're getting to the core existential question for many data scientists. The existential question being, well, what sort of job can I have? What sort of job should I have? What sort of work is going to be available? What and who do I need to be, or what or who can I be in this field? So that's what we've dedicated today's proceedings to. And just to give you a quick outline of what to expect, we're going to start with a presentation from a good friend and longtime supporter of this meetup, Greg Pearl of Onset, who's over there, who I will call upon shortly to give us a brief talk on, well, what's the employment landscape looking like? What are employers looking for? What are the gaps? Where is the market full, and so forth? Following that, we will have the panel itself, and we have our three distinguished panelists who will each give also a brief talk describing their view of the situation and the main points as they see them. We'll follow that with some questions from me, just to start things off. But most importantly, the main body will be questions from yourselves. So without further ado, and there was much ado, as I promised you, I will now hand over to Greg Pearl of Onset, a long time, as I said, supporter and friend of the meetup. And Greg, I am so pleased to have your help yet again.
I feel like I'm the warm act for the actual for what you're here to say. No, look, thank you, Eugene. I think it's very important to get an idea, definitely listening to industry experts about what they look for when they look for data scientists, and what skill sets they look for, what stakeholder management skills they look for. But I can tell you from more the agency view, the recruitment agency view, because we talk to a lot of clients about what they're looking for, yeah, with regard to a data scientist, a machine learning engineer, right down to data analysts. Yeah, I'll just move this. So I'll give you a little bit of an idea. We won't go spend too much time on this, but the Onset, we're a specialist technical recruitment organisation. We have 5 different areas that we focus on: engineering, digital, project services, cloud security, but probably the thing we're most famous for, data and analytics and machine learning. Some companies that we work with. So we work with a combination of some quite enterprise organizations right down to your startup organizations. Each organization requires different skill sets, different capabilities, and whether that's perm or contract, we look after them in all areas there. Thought I'd show you this as well, just to give you an idea about sort of what industries are recruiting data scientists at the moment. So if you look at information technology and services, that's obviously going to be a very obvious way to move into it. Banking, computer software, higher education, retail, management consultants, financial services, the government, telecommunications and insurance. So they are the leading areas, leading industries and marketplaces that are looking for quality individuals. If you just bring it down to, and I've picked the top 7 in Sydney, organisations that recruit individuals across this skill set. You're looking at the Commonwealth Bank, Atlassian, Woolies X, Quantium, Optus, the Woolworths Group in itself. Yeah. You could probably mix the Woolworths Group with Quantium, right? They've got a division called WIC, which is very much focused on the data around everything around retail for both of those enterprises, and the Centre Group.
Can I ask a question on that?
Yeah, please.
I can see most numbers are going up. How recent is that data? Is that coming from your company?
Yeah, no, it's recent data from LinkedIn.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also, Atlassian hired 27 staff last whatever the period is, right?
Yeah. All right.
This sort of is kind of like contradicting to the mega kind of like environment where everyone is quite cautious when it comes to costs.
Yeah, they are definitely, but I think data science bucks the trend in that area. Yeah, I mean they're still requiring that. They're still looking for that. One of the things to always remember about data science, and I think you guys, anyone in this field, is very fortunate. It takes a lot more money to acquire a new customer than retain an old customer. Yeah. So the more information you can get, the more information you can feed back to the organisation. The more information you can get out to a client, that's going to help you. Yeah. So there's a lot of understanding and reasons why organisations put a lot of money and effort into around that data science capability. Always, yeah.
So you've got the attrition rate there. So what counts would you say is a high attrition rate for like data science? Like,
can I get you to make this? Excuse me. Sorry,
Oh,
Jake. Zoe,
we
can you just make this a full screen again? Can you say that question?
sorry. So you've got the attrition rate there.
Yeah.
You know, what have in your experience in recruiting do you find is a high attrition rate, and you know, what is the average attrition rate? So that because data is not very good without any benchmarks. Right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Look, I can't talk figures to you around that. Yeah, with regard to attrition and what's going on in that data science space. I think more than anything, it's with regard to it's either people moving from one to another organisation. Yeah, I think an attrition rate of around 5% is like would be standard. Anything higher than that would be something to look at. Now, this is very sort of general to give you an idea around salary guides. So you're looking at chief data officers around that 200 to 350K base. Yep, that's what you're looking at for someone who's going to come into an enterprise organization and run a large team, set up data strategy, data governance. Then you're going into the lead data scientist where they are managing a team. Yeah, that could be anywhere from 20 to 30 people down to 10 people. Senior data scientists, I think you understand where that level fits, and data scientists. I put at the bottom there the machine learning engineers, apart from the chief data officer, but the machine learning engineers, it's very much similar with regard to a salary rate as well. Yeah. If anyone wants to talk about data analysts and that sort of level of role, please talk to Jake and myself. Sorry, Jake is standing over here. Jake Murdoch. Yep. So please talk to us afterwards if you've got any questions. Any questions? That was good timing, wasn't it?
I think we'll allow maybe one or two questions briefly while these ideas are in the air. So,
Jake, I'll get you to come over in case.
There was a CDO and lead level. What about like the principal level, which is like sole contributor kind of role?
For salary levels? So what sort of level are you talking about again? Sorry.
Like principal or like staff, which is like more sole contributor rather than manager?
Yeah, no, definitely. Look, it's going to be around that sort of 160 to 190,000 for that sort of role. Very general figures. It depends on what they're actually doing. Are they within a corporate organisation? Are they in a consulting organisation? Yeah, but that's the sort of level that you'd be looking at.
Yeah, just on that slide, I'm curious to get what's the growth rate for like the role in the last 5 years, and what would you see the growth rate to be going forward? Like,
say that again.
So the growth, so the growth rate for those jobs, is it like 10%, 15%? So that's the number for this year, right? So what's the number, say 5 years prior to that? And then what's the annualized figure? Do you have like a rough figure in your head?
I can tell you prior to COVID, The salary levels were a bit lower, yeah, through COVID. They sort of went through the roof, yeah, but they are now starting to settle down a bit, yeah, and that really is just lack of commodity, lack of people in the marketplace. So funnily enough, throughout COVID, there was a lot of movement within the marketplace, yeah. One thing I'll always say to individuals, though, and this is something to keep in mind, whether you're an experienced data scientist or across any data practice, the thing to do is not focus on money, focus on what you're actually doing. Yeah, whether you want I think if you're really sort of challenged around the type of product you're using, the organization you're working for, money will sort itself out. You are going to be at the top end of IT salaries in the marketplace.
Well, thank you very much, Greg.
Thank you. Sorry, Eugene. One thing I'll say, yeah. So look, Jake and I will be here. If anyone's got any questions,
Big hand for Greg. Okay, the main show is getting a little closer. And Zoe, can we please put Stefan's presentation up? And can we get Stefan himself? So Stefan is a team leader of a rather large and interesting data science oriented team at the NAB, but he has asked me to point out that he is not here representing NAB today. And indeed, he has a number of other things going on. He's a very enterprising as well as interesting person. He, formally representing himself in another capacity today, but he is speaking with authority as a very serious data science team leader in a very large corporate. So over to Stefan for his introductory remarks. Thank you, Stefan.
Okay, thank you, Eugene. Yeah, I'm honored to be here. I remember a couple of years back, 4 or 5 years back, when I met Eugene, and I was just starting with data science, and I was also new to Australia. We were in the CBA building and having this data science meetups. It's interesting to see that it's still going on and the community is growing. So yeah, congratulations, Eugene, for that. What can I say here? So I was actually impressed by the presentation before me, because as you'll see, despite many job titles I had in data science and so on, my presentation will be nowhere near with the details, data, statistics, and so on. So well done. Okay. So Eugene asked me to introduce myself. How can I do that? I could have picked a project or something to talk about, or I could have picked, I was thinking, my first conversation with Greg was, he said, where's your CV? Okay, so let's start with my CV. A few things that I've done through the year. I don't want to be here to brag by myself, but I structured it like this to make a point on the next slide. So I was in Europe for most of my career, where I switched between academia and companies. I made a couple of startups in there. And when I came to Australia 5, 6 years ago, I joined 3 large organizations. I still work for one of them. So it's basically 2 in financial industry and 1 in telco. Let's assume for a second that I have a role open in my team and I'm in any of those positions. I do roughly the same thing because my background is the same. And basically, if you would work for me, you would do the same thing no matter where I am right there. But can you see already that the interview questions I'm going to ask you are specific to where I would be? Is it academia? Is it a startup? Is it a corporation? Yeah, there is data science, and there is something else that you need to have in order to be successful in these organizations. So my last slide is about I said, okay, let's start the conversation. Yeah, so icebreaker. And what I was thinking of is my best friend ChatGPT. I put there a question. So what are the top 3 data scientist interview questions? Yeah? And you can see they're mainly technical. Yeah? While reality, what I've seen across these large organizations, but also when I was in Europe, it comes to something else. Data science or mathematics or an algorithmic mind, that is more and more a commodity. What is important is understand the business. As a data scientist, you want to write a model that brings the business millions and so on. What is the business? If you do not understand that business, you start with a handicap. Yeah? So that would be a first line of questions you get when you come for a position in my team. The second one is, can you work with uncertainty and in uncertain environment? What do I mean by that? With uncertainty, if you come to my team and you expect me to give you tasks and tell you, I want you to implement this model like this and so on, and you have 2 weeks to do it and so on, then it's missing a point. You're a data scientist. You tell me what to do. The second part of the question, if you are really successful, especially in a small organization, you are going to change that organization inside out. So you are going to flip the management structure and so on and the business model because you are successful, right? And the third thing is very interesting as well. And I saw it. You are expert in data science. What other expertise do you have? We have many people with PhDs in physics, chemistry, whatever. Can you transfer some knowledge from the other field into this data science field into our business? So this would be my icebreaker. And yeah, if you run out of ideas of questions, okay, feel free to use this for starters. So yeah, thank you so much, Eugene.
We won't do questions now after each speaker, but do bear in mind that there may be questions you may want to ask Stefan specifically at question time. Our next speaker is a very distinguished leader, I guess director is the formal title, isn't it, Debbie, of a natural language processing group within the Smarter Data team of the Australian Tax Office, and that is Debbie Jung. And well, Debbie has the floor and no slides, I believe. That's okay. I know someone else who never has slides.
My presentations are nowhere to compare to Stefan because I don't even prepare slides, but that's not my fault because Warren didn't tell me. So I thought I just came here just to answer questions. So my name is Debbie Zhang. I'm a senior director at the data science team in the data science branch at the ATO Australian Taxation Office. I'm sure that you all know about Australian Taxation Office. If you don't know that, you shouldn't be here. So I have been to the ATO for 15 years. So I started as the data scientist there. The reason that I still there is I really enjoy the work. And the ATO actually have really diversities of workforce. And the reason I'm here also is because I want to promote female data scientists. So we do have, I'm really glad to see that we do have a lot of females here. And we want to actually promote female data scientists at the ATO. So in our data science branch, we have around 130 people. ATO, because it's a really large organization, we are actually the largest one that within the Australian government. So we have around 700 data and data professionals. So we actually have people to support us, like data engineer, the data management, and data analysts. So our work is just only to build models. So really specific, just only build models. And I feel that it's really an honor to do that because it took us a long journey to get to the current point that we have multiple support from the whole end-to-end process. So Australian Taxation Office, you all know that is a public service. So we can't compete with that salary range, to be very honest with you. But we do have our own advantage, our own benefit. We do have like a work-life balance. We actually have flexible arrangement for your work. And we actually work on a really, really large data set. We actually work on different problems every day. So we are allowed to actually use the latest technology. So we actually use also large language model. And so that's why that it is a really interesting work that we are working on. So large data sets different problems and latest technology. So you got support from the organization. Unlike, I want to say some small organization, you do a lot of things, but which is great at the same time. But because we are able to build deep learning models, so we were allowed to do really complex problems. In terms of recruitment, we actually recruit from the like graduate programs. We have to have our expert here. So we have we recruit from the graduate programs and from the junior data scientists to directors. We just finished recruitment in December last year. So we basically actually recruit a lot of people every year. At the moment, we actually have more problem, more money than what we can actually provide services. So you're all welcome to join us. Thank you.
Well, I thought this would be a useful and promising event for those of you looking for a job in data science. I didn't realize it would be that good. So thank you for that, Debbie. We have one more panelist. Zoe, can we please bring up Stephen Samuel's presentation? And Stephen, can we bring up Stephen, please? It gives me great pleasure to introduce my former business partner, very close friend, and team leader of a exciting data science team at QBE, Stephen Samuel.
So I thought there were sort of three sub-questions that I wanted to talk about tonight. Speaking from my own experience here and sort of very much with that anchored at the moment in QBE, so sort of a large insurer. Question one was, what are employers looking for in data scientists? We look for, I've got three answers to each of these three questions. So the first is competencies. I'd say that we look for stats first, programming second. Stats is the harder one to learn on the job. Programming is easier to learn on the job, and sort of everything else you can learn on the job.
Who taught you that?
The second thing we look for is what I've called contra-academic commitments. So I sort of think every year that you've invested in your education beyond a master's degree is a year that we have to train you out of when you become a data scientist in a commercial organization. And that's because as you head towards PhD and postgraduate work, you're being trained to do things like choose the problem that you want to work on, carefully design and execute the experiment you need to generate the data to answer that problem, and then take your time, because it's really important that you answer that problem in sort of A-star journal publication sort of level quality. And the reality of data science in business is you need the opposite of those three instincts. Near enough is good enough. You know, we need the answer now. The data is really messy and there's not much you can do about that. So that's, I think, important just to think about. We don't expect people to come out of a postdoc with that sort of set of attitudes, but it's useful to think about that as a sort of a commitment to having to work on some things that won't come as naturally because you've been trained in the opposite direction. Third thing we look for is a kind of spirit of career self-ownership. So we're here in the Institute of Actuaries. There is no institute of data scientists looking after your career as a data scientist. It's a very different sort of profession. It's not a capital P profession. So as a data scientist, you need to sort of be, you need to understand that there are not these clear boundaries that define your sort of role and what your career path might look like. And that's going to map closely to what some of your friends and colleagues are doing. You don't have boundaries. What you've got is more like frontiers. The profession keeps moving in sort of all sorts of directions and you've got to keep up, but you might be moving in very different and sort of idiosyncratic directions compared to what some of your colleagues and former classmates are doing. The flip of this question is, what should data scientists be looking for in employers? And I think a really useful first order question is, how dependent even if I don't know anything about that business, how dependent does that business look like it is on just data itself? So don't even think about data science, just is the business I'm interviewing with or considering joining, does it depend on data at all? Second important question is who decides what projects you'll work on? A good answer to that would be, my boss has got discretion about what I do. My boss has got got their own team and budget. And a bad answer to that question would be something like, I sit in a pool of data scientists and we get sort of allocated to projects here and there, according to some kind of formula. Third thing I would ask of organisations is who will then evaluate the success of the projects that you work on. And a good answer to that would be the business users who are using the software that we've created. A bad answer would be something like the marketing team who we have to give slides to. Third question is more of a speculation on my part, and this is not a prognostication on where I think data science is going. It's what I'm interested in. And the two propositions are that software is becoming more fundamental to business. You could think of that as the digitization effect. More and more of what businesses do is being expressed as software. But it's also true that software development itself is still really in its infancy. So like civil engineering goes back to ancient Egypt, manufacturing goes back to the Industrial Revolution, even electrified manufacturing goes back, 120 years. Software engineering at best is 60 years old. And it's really not that well done. We don't know a lot about software engineering. We don't know a lot about what we don't know about software engineering. One of the ways I sort of would track data science as a thing is sort of, when I was first in data science, it was really like a kind of recycling. We have data over here from process A, we're trying to use it to do something over here in process B. The consumer internet companies kind of stumbled on this business model where the data from the product made the product better. So the more people who use Google search, the better Google search got. I think there's a kernel in that which I'd like to see be the future of software development informed by data science, which is that the future of software development should be that one of the objectives of software should be that its own improvement is an explicit part of the development process. And I think the feedback loop of data from the software back into the improvement of that software is somewhere I would really like to see data scientists go and sort of pull the IT people with them. That's my opening provocation.
He's scary articulate, isn't he? That was good. And I think that was a great opening to the way Stephen framed it. We had a chat and I said, okay, Steve, we're going to be talking about things like this. He goes and puts them on his slides, which is great, because that is a good time now to invite all of our panelists to come and take a seat on the, they look like baby chairs, don't they? And what we'll do is we'll ask first Debbie and then Stefan to maybe address some or all of those points, the questions involved, to try and answer them from their perspectives. And then when it gets to Stephen, we might ask Stephen to drill down specifically into things like what skills, what backgrounds, what degrees, what attitude, what characteristics and attitudes people might want to see in your own data science team. So over to you, Debbie, to just go through those 3 questions in bold, if you want to. Is that microphone on?
On now? Yeah. Oh, yes, good. Okay, the first one, what are employers looking for in data scientists? One thing that in our data science team is most important is the technical skills. So we actually think that the technical skills is the most important things that to actually distinguish us from other professionals. So, but that is the basic. That's not all about it. So we also look for other capabilities apart from your technical skills. So like what Stephanie said, that business problems, right? So you need to understand the problem you're going to resolve. So we need to look for like stakeholders, like stakeholders engagement techniques, project management skills. So there's a lot of whole range of skills that we are looking for. So I think, and it's really important that the career self-ownership, because like the technology just like move so fast, everything just changed. So if you don't have the self-esteem to actually learn, so you will get behind really quickly. So I totally agree with all that three criteria. The next question is, what should data scientists be looking for in employers? Now, because we are the public service, so our our salary is nowhere near that. So I really like Brad said. So don't look for the money, look for the work. It's really important that, particularly at your early career, I think is money is not the most important thing. I have to say, that's my personal opinions, and I think this is important. It's actually give you the opportunity to learn from grow your capabilities. So in that case, the money will follow, right? So in that case, you're actually able to step into the higher position in a shorter time frame. So I think the most important thing is, first of all, look at the broad range of the work that you will going to perform and the opportunity for you to develop yourself. That would be the main thing that I will look for if I am going to look for my first job. So what data science career headed? Software is really, really important. So that is actually a really good outline of what data science career headed. So if you're not able to develop any software, you're not able to actually do programming, to be honest, data science is not for you. So the basic skill set is programming, software development skills. Of course, you need to actually understand and also have the mathematics background, right? You have the interest to able to develop new algorithms. So the data science careers, and the other thing is actually, I would say that with the progress of your career, so you move into the managerial role. So project management skills and team management skills will become a really key the skill sets. So I think that's the answer from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Debbie. Now, you can clap it. Looks like there's going to be a lot of clapping, and it's well deserved. Over to you, Stefan.
Yes. Let's start with the first question. What are employers looking for in data scientists? So I think, most of the answer was given already. I fully agree with what you said. I've touched on a few points on my slide. So what else is there to say? Can I maybe summarize it as employers are looking for the data scientists that have a proper optimization metric in place? What do I mean by that? Think that you're applying for a position in academia. Yeah, so you are gonna, I'm oversimplifying, you are gonna be competing on achieving the best paper award, one algorithm that really mesmerizes everyone. Think that now that you go into a startup environment, again, I'm oversimplifying, being able to switch between 15 different tasks all ad hoc, it's gonna be the second most important skill next to the data science. Sorry. You go into a large organization. This time it's about understanding the internals and be aware that, let's say it has 100,000 employees. When you move very slow, but you move with all 100,000 behind you. How do you gather the internal support and so on to make all that organization go on one dimension? These are the skills. So this is the optimization metric that you should have the right one. Yeah. So I think that would be the first product market fit when you go and interview in a place. Well, at least in my view, yeah, they should see that whatever drives you and you want to offer is actually what they need in that environment from this perspective. So it's not about if you go into a large organization, if you go there and you can be an Olympic in mathematics, you might have a problem. But again, oversimplifying. Second question, what should data scientists be looking for in employers? I'm getting old. Okay, don't believe it, but it was like yesterday when I was 20 years old and programming like crazy through day and night. And now if I lose a night programming, the rest of the week is pretty problematic. So this means that my skills, I'm gonna address it from a completely different perspective. My skills and my interests evolve with time. When I was young, I was really looking for technology. When I'm now a bit older, I'm looking for more management roles. I'm looking how to understand how to take the organization behind me and get their support and so on. So what should someone look at an employer? I would just come to the same answer, but from a different perspective. Look for something that develops you, an opportunity to be developed, because I think there is a transition between being very hands-on and extinguishing all the fires to the point in which you reach the very senior level at the end of your career where you are a board member, let's say, right? So then there will be stages. Are you in the right stage? Is this organization offering you the possibility to learn to the next stage? Always remember what got you in the room at this interview here is not going to be what will get you to the next interview when you go on level up, yeah? You start as a scientist, let's say, if you want a management position, you'll need a different set of skills. So look for the employer that allows you to develop on that particular dimension. Where are data science careers headed? Okay, this is controversial. So, okay, some people will not like me afterwards. Let's see, which dimensions can I look at this thing? Because there was a very good answer offered already on this thing. It's a commodity, yeah, so everything, if you look at engineers in any field of activity, they work to make their life easier. They invent new tools and so on. Inventing new, better tools make some of them unemployed. Well, in data science, I think we are very efficient at making ourselves unemployed. Yeah, we just came up with these language models that are quite amazing in some fields. And now they can write software, so interesting. So from that perspective, where careers in data science are headed, it's about how do you exploit the new opportunities in the market. Now we know if you want to make money, these are a few fields where you can start a startup. We are in Sydney, so maybe do a fintech, so it's okay. But in the industry of tomorrow, where you'll have 10,000 agents that you can spin like this and they can do 10,000 tasks, what is the one thing that is gonna catch the interest? Can you look at it from a data science perspective? Can you figure out the main algorithm? Now it's probably customer segmentation in some industry, but in that industry, what will be? So if you have that particular inspiration, then as a data scientist, you're good to go. You'll be there forever. Okay, I'll leave it at this thing. Thank you.
I thought Stefan was going to be provocative and fun and insightful, and I think he's delivering. What do you think? Stephen, you answered, in fact, you brought up the slide to begin with, but I was wondering if you could perhaps drill down more specifically into skills, degrees, backgrounds, and maybe even personality traits in terms of desirable and undesirable, less desirable.
Qualifications. So as I've sort of already said, we are typically looking at a master's or above. I just say in a quantitative degree, maths, stats, computer science, physics, possibly econometrics, electrical engineering. In terms of how we then assess those skills, we really look for some end-to-end predictive modeling experience, which most people who are applying for data science roles have done at some level. And we assess technically through just talking through that case study. It takes about an hour. That's our first interview. It's done by other data scientists. Interview 2 is a programming interview with a lot of back and forth. And that again is the data scientists who work for us, helping evaluate candidates, and it's the candidates getting the experience of this is what it's like to work remotely with a couple of members of the team who I've just met. And that's effectively how we assess sort of technical credentials. It gets a little bit different as you get more senior. Our third interview is a hiring manager's interview, and that's really looking for cultural fit. In terms of attitude, you know, the flip of what I was saying about sort of those contra academic tendencies is we're essentially looking for someone who wants to have a business impact. I'm concerned if someone says, I just really want to work with large language models, or 3 years ago, I just really want to work with deep learning. Because that's a signal that we're maybe not the right fit for you. You might end up on your first couple of projects writing software, but it mightn't be fitting models. If you're not prepared to do that, you're really saying that you've got something that's more important for you than what I'm saying is business value to QBE. So I think it's important to screen for that. And then some of the other markers, sort of career ownership and that sort of thing.
Stephen, and to all three of you, how much is data being an evangelist to get data out into the business, really promoting data within the business?
We don't look for data scientists to do that. So we've got my role and other roles in the team that are doing all of that day-to-day promotion, relationship management, project management, product ownership, a lot of that sort of stuff. So that's there as a career path for data scientists if they want it, if they're looking to head in a managerial, domain managerial, possibly eventually general managerial direction. Empirically, most of them don't want that.
They also need stakeholder management, not sitting in a dark corner just doing.
In some roles they do. I'd say we've structured a number of our teams and projects around them getting to sit in as much of a dark corner as they like. And there are other people whose role it is to ensure that they don't get interrupted. Yeah. So I think that's just, that's a function of the level of specialization that we've developed over time.
Democracy is a controversial political system historically, and certainly within settings. So I'm going to implement that system in a very limited and tentative way. I honestly don't know what to do next. I have two options, and I'm going to leave it to you. So one option is I have a few more questions that I really want to ask these folks, like get them to answer them each. Like I want to ask, no, wait. I want to ask, you know, things about challenges to data scientists. I also want to ask about perhaps advice to young data scientists. So we could just get each of them in turn to give us what they think is the best advice for a, you know, a graduate or newly minted data scientist. Or we could just open it up to you and your questions. So who wants me to ask the questions next? Who wants you to ask the questions next? What do you think?
So one man, one vote once is what we got.
Okay.
There.
Yeah. We need a governor general. All right. Because I'm ridiculously lazy, it's over to you. And by the way, I am going to use the opportunity to dob in some additional panelists, because it turns out like the reason Tom Osborne isn't a panelist is because he was a speaker last week. If Luke Metcalf was here, he'd have the same fate. So Tom, would you mind being someone people could potentially ask questions? Or if you feel you have a very good answer or a perspective that has been addressed, just don't jump in.
I've got a question.
Oh, you got a question now.
Oh, there was somebody else.
No, you go.
Oh, okay. Oh, thank you. I want to bring up topic of soft skills, and the way I want to ask it is, you talk about projects and teams as if it's data science teams and the projects are something that data science owns. But my experience in industry is that the team is across data science, general business, people who manage data, people who understand customers, everything. Some of them are very unable to understand what the hell data scientists are doing. They don't even know what error rate means or what significance means. What employers, in my opinion, would be looking for is data scientists who are articulate and can speak in the language of those other people. And the dangerous part of that is the other people are often from parts of the business that are very political. They have their own agendas. They often don't think data science is going to work. So we have two effectively corporates and one public service where life's pretty organized. But if somebody's being more a consultant when they go into a business, then there's enemies at the beginning, and another 40% that don't really understand what you're talking about unless you do it very good. So my question is generally around the soft skills of communication. What's the data scientist's role that a business might be looking for within broader teams that are not just data science teams? Yeah, otherwise I'll keep looking.
I have to answer first. It's a really, really good question because like soft skills in the data science is so important. Say, for example, I give you a word, IT. You all think that IT is information technology, right? But in our context, IT is income tax. So it's completely different. So different people talk about different languages in our organization. And actually, stakeholders management is all about communication. You just like don't know about that. Our relationship with ESP and the IT department, just like brother and sisters. We have to rely on each other, but we always fight with each other because we actually have different goals, right? So these soft skills to convince other people, to influence their decision, become really, very important. So that's why that's one of the key capability we will look for when we actually in the performance in the interview. So the soft skills is not only like with different stakeholders, and also you need to convince your manager as well, right? Because your manager doesn't really look at what you're doing every day. And you need to actually bring back the right message to your manager. So I just can't emphasize how important that would be.
Yeah, thank you for your answer. It's basically spot on. I couldn't agree more with it. So what I can add is the way in which you frame the question is a data scientist shouldn't be able to speak the language of everybody else because that's impossible. Should be able not to speak a data science language. Let's put it that way. Right? If a data scientist comes here in a gathering like this and can talk to anyone and tell in a few words what's the importance of results of their algorithm, okay, we are halfway there. Now, you never, or in my experience, in everywhere where I've been so far, the result of your data science algorithm or whatever model you are building, it's not very important. It's not part of your KPIs. What you'll see part of your KPIs is what benefit you brought to the organization, how much you improved some products. When you say word product, this means already you have to interface with a bunch of teams from engineering down to marketing and so on. So yes, it's more than it's very important skill. As a trick, what I do in interviews, I ask, especially it's the second or third round, ask them pick a problem that you've solved in data science in a project. I don't care, just pick it and explain it to me in 2 slides. Forward to me only 2 slides. From those 2 slides, you find immediately if that person is a complete no fit for the organization or not.
I think we need some disagreement on the panel, so I'll try and disagree with it. I'll make the case that the soft skills don't need to be with the data scientist, as long as they're somewhere in the team. If I see a job ad for, say, a senior data scientist, and it stipulates that you need a certain number of years experience building models, and you need the following languages, and you also need to have a track record of influencing senior C-suite stakeholders and developing analytic strategy, I think that's a recipe for failure. And I think that that's a job spec that's not very well thought through. That's someone who I think is probably going to be thrown into a role that's just set up to fail. And I think the organisation doesn't know quite what it's asking for, but probably it's data science is one of the Hail Marys it's throwing at the moment. So I think there are sort of structural answers in a well-posed team where the selling, the influencing happens at different levels, done by different people, and there's sufficient handoff, and the technical resources are largely sort of protected from the more sort of pathological politics. And more importantly, their work is being valued. So they're spending more time at their desks because they're doing work, but the work has been well directed because the selling has been done well as well. And I think that you get a lot more of the wrong results when you're trying to have a sort of Superman who can do everything. And all of the skills needed for success kind of get packaged up in the idea of one or two people have it all covered. Right? I think that's certainly in large organizations, that's unrealistic, I think.
I do apologize for skipping you. I was dobbing Tom in as an extra panelist, and he went and asked a question, which is fine. Haven't even finished doing my dobbing in bit because Rowan Baxter is a colleague of Debbie's, and the point is, both Rowan and Tom, not right now, unless you really want to, are invited to jump in. Scott as well. Scott is a colleague of Stephen's who's here and may have things to say as well. The way I want to do this now, and you will be the first question, the way I want to do this is we're not going to go through every single panelist, or we'll be here forever. So please nominate a panelist that you want to answer your question. Or if you don't have one, just ask your question and panelists can put their hands up and I'll pick one. So, but it'll be one panelist per question so we can get through lots of questions. What's your name?
Yeah, my name is Arvind Shastri. And I think my question is probably for Stephen, Stefan. Okay. So I wanted to know, so you mentioned about corporate, and I want to know that what are the, what are opportunities for somebody who does not necessarily come from a data or who do not start their careers in data science or computer science background, might have probably ventured into corporate, worked across different roles, maybe like sales, strategy, operations, and coming from a very functional background, but looking for opportunities to move into data science as a career. Now, what could be a career pathway for such kind of individuals?
Yeah, thank you for your question. So to rephrase, basically, you are wondering about people who don't have a formal data science as a background and would like to make a transition. I can think of many examples of past colleagues that were in that thing, but maybe the easiest way to answer is to start with observation that we are surrounded in all these organizations by data analysts. Senior data analysts, many of them want to transition to data science. Many of them are successfully transitioned and have careers in there. So I would say the fact that you didn't get a diploma in something with the word data science in it, it's not a stop. My background is in telecommunications. The career path on how to do it. I would say that the most important skill any of these organizations, in my view, so feel free to contradict me if that's not, is problem solving. If you figure out how to solve problems, if you have a drive to go and ask and search and so on, a new algorithm, you will learn it in 1 weekend. That's not an issue. Sorry. Today, algorithms are commodities. Basically, one line of Python, there is a library implementing it. You understand, shall I apply this or not? You're done, right? So, but again, I'm talking at the level of corporate, not inventing basic things in data science. So from this perspective, your career path, as long as you say, I have a drive to go, I can prove that the problem solving skill is there, you're good to go. I have colleagues from all sorts of disciplines. And okay. Does this answer your question?
Yeah, it does.
Okay, thank you.
Right, next question.
Thanks. It was actually a question for all three, but I'll let either you guys to self-select or Eugene to dob someone in. I'm interested in how you would decide on a candidate where there's three or there's multiple candidates that are essentially even across the board? How would you decide for the individual candidate?
You want to have a shot at that one, Rowan?
That's a tricky hypothetical. So speaking from an ATO perspective and our experience, well, we actually put them on our merit list and then make an offer, and quite often they've already snapped up other roles. So we're quickly cycling through the 4 candidates, and we're lucky if we get the 4th one. So that might be a bit of a cynical answer, but that's how it happens. Things move on. The final straw. Yeah,
assuming all of them have the even,
and they're available.
Yeah.
A final straw would be team fit. So it would be the team leader and maybe some team members would be having a conversation with candidates and just working out the chemistry and a fit like that. That's realistically that's how it would pan out.
Hello. Hi. So I think this question is going to go to Stephen. Large language models, since you brought it up yourself, it sounded like that might be a red flag during an interview if you were to mention that. I'm quite conscious of that myself. But the question is not using large language models these days. Don't you think that's going to be a risk on itself? Of one, that's behind, and worse, just being disrupted.
Yeah, I should have answered more clearly. I think I totally understand that one of the things high on a data scientist's list would be the opportunity to work with the latest tools and techniques. My judgment would be that if I look at the class of problems that we need solved, specifically at QBE and in my team, I've probably got a list of what needs to be done in what order, and I can't see that those problems are going to intersect with these technologies. And so that's me saying, you look like a great candidate, but I think you're just going to be disappointed by us and frustrated. And I think you'll find there'll be work in a startup or somewhere else that's a better fit for what you want. So I appreciate the honesty of the candidate in that situation, and they should be upfront. An interview is always a two-way process.
I'd like to ask a question to Stefan. What do you think is the value of getting a PhD nowadays, all things considered, in data science, if you're not aiming for academia? Because I think Stephen mentioned already how it can actually be detrimental or counterproductive in some way.
Yeah, good question. I struggled with it myself before and after I got my PhD as well. So the first question is, should I go and get a PhD? Why do I want to get that? It's not about the money. It's about me getting the opportunity to study something I was really passionate about. And somebody locking me in a room for 4 years and giving me funding to look at that's not gonna for me. Afterwards, I stayed in academia. I didn't really like teaching. So, okay, went to the startup world and off I went. When I joined a corporate, that proved to be a disadvantage because people who started from the same point where I started now had 4 years of advantage. I had 4 years of practice. So what? I stopped applying for junior roles. I applied for senior roles, and because the advantage that you get from the PhD is that you're a free thinker. I think. Yeah, for 4 years. If you are like me, I got the title of my PhD thesis in the last year. So I was wondering, figuring out what I like, and then suddenly I have enough material and this is a solved problem. So then I got the title of my PhD. If you are like this and you work, now I work very closely with the innovation department, for me it's perfect. So I have somebody with a PhD, I have a huge advantage because I was led to for 4 years to think in my own way, to choose my own way, and this works for me. Yeah, so I see, again, you have to be fit for that particular job needs from your employer. If you are going to work with strategy, with innovation and so on, there's no reason not to have a PhD. Yeah? So I hope this answers your question. I don't regret having a PhD, so I would choose the same path.
Good to know.
Yeah, so.
Hello, over here. Oh, no. Question for Stephen. Roger here. So related to the software remark there, so just wondering if perhaps maybe machine learning, engineering, and those kind of skill sets are maybe becoming more important because one, as you said, good enough models are sufficient, and considering also high performance algorithms that are open source and a lot of the cloud providers offer auto ML and things like that. So how do you see data scientists versus machine learning agents?
I was hoping someone would take the bait, so thank you for that question. I'm actually not talking about software creating itself or improving itself. When you talk to IT people about software, they sort of have like a mental model of what you do is you build a new system and it works for exactly how the business operates now. And it's also empty. There's no data in it anywhere because it hasn't been used yet. What I'm thinking about is what we've actually done for some of our projects is we've built the tools that are used by underwriters to do their jobs. And we've built them explicitly so that the tools are collecting all of the data that is being generated by them doing their jobs. And then we're modeling that data and feeding it back in. And it's a way of getting the software system a lot closer to kind of the coalface of the work itself and saying that the data generated by this system when it's in use, we want to find ways to feed that back into improving the system and keeping it current with reality. And sort of adding value to the decisions that are being augmented and automated through it. So it's more mundane than sort of software sort of creating ever more powerful versions of itself. But it's sort of a frontier of data science that I find really interesting, which is how do we actually get software generally to be thought of in a different way that's more powerful.
Hi, my name's Sheila. I'm a lecturer in biomedical data science and statistics, and I probably need 10 years of unlearning to get a job in corporate. And coming from like the higher education angle, what advice or what would you ask of higher education to ensure that you are getting data scientists who are equipped to be working wherever it is that in any role that you see?
Did you nominate a respondent?
Big one, Eugene.
Any.
Volunteer? I was born.
I used to be an academic for something like 15 years, 12 years. And I've been consulting and working on both small startups and consulting to blue chips. So I've put my toes in all those waters. What's the pathway out of academia? That's the right question. Is that the right question?
It's more like, I'm lecturing 400 students who are looking for jobs next year. What do I tell them,
I thought you might have been asking for yourself as well. I'm not the right person to answer about biomedical and bioinformatics and so on, but I know someone who is, so I can put you in contact with them. It's really your responsibility as a lecturer to have given them practical projects that are close enough to industry that when they go to their first job interview, they can say, oh, I've done something like what your company does and I found some results and wrote a good report. It looks like something that could be implemented. So students selling themselves based on a capability that they've already personally experienced. Some universities do that and some don't. I don't know which one you're at.
University of Sydney.
Yeah, okay. You more than pass marks for that, but there's some universities much more focused on projects that are very industrial. They have capstone projects brought in with industry partners. In some cases, first semester and fourth semester, and of causing the students to burn themselves into a mess in the first one, so that by the fourth one they can use the skills. But there's a background agenda on being able to sell themselves as a competent person within a team. As I was trying to tell earlier to these three, two of whom sort of agreed with me, the notion of a project team has to have the smart data sciencey person in it, or several. There needs to be a common consensus of understanding what the problem is that got turned into a project. In my experience, especially when I work with marketing people, the actual problem's not well enough understood, and the project gets defined in one way, and the data scientist has to come in and be a bit of a bully in marketing language to make the project have different kinds of objectives, like a project that incrementally improves itself. To get a fresh graduate to come and say things like that in a job interview shows that they're thinking forward. To basically to look like they've already done the kind of work that's like the workplace, but it was set up by excellent lecturers like you, so that they can demonstrate those skills. Like they all know Python, they all know about genomic data sets or something like that, but it's did it address an industrial brief or a finding that saved lives or something like that. I think I've said enough.
Hi, my name is Akriti and I'm a data scientist at UNSW. My question is for Stephen. In your second point for the question, what are employers looking for data scientists? You say contra academic commitment. Maybe I misunderstood you, or maybe I just thought I took the perception in a wrong way. When you said that you wouldn't want a person who has done a PhD or postdoctorate because they would know how to go and think about an experiment, design it, run it, get the findings, analysis. You would want someone who has done a certain high level of degree, but not that whole part, because then it will be difficult for them to come into a team and then work with the team. But me being as a data scientist, part of my job is to actually design the question for my team in research, or more specifically for COVID-19. So then how would you go about that? Isn't that a bit contradicting?
We hire a lot of data scientists who've got PhDs, postdocs. In fact, our first team that Scott and I recruited was almost entirely exactly that profile. And we kind of ended up describing them as refugees from academia, because they'd soured on the experience of so much of their work being grant writing and doing work that they didn't think was actually advancing the science. It was just keeping the machine, the sort of tournament system of sort of the academic tournament system running. So that was part of their motivation. The point I was making about skills is that if you've gone as far as PhD or a postdoc, you've invested in the set of skills that are going to take you further along that track. And you're going to get a bit of a shock when you find that a lot of the things that you've trained yourself to think in terms of are the opposite of what you're now being pressured to doing. So you're being pressured to solve problems much faster to a much lower standard of precision, and don't bother explaining how you got to the answer. And so that's a shock for the candidate. And so my point was, it's stuff that we will work with you to sort of train you out of, not that the level of academic attainment is a problem. In fact, it's obviously a credential that indicates a level of excellence. It's more about the work we have to do together to make you a good cultural fit.
Yeah, I just wanted to say something on this as well.
Maybe I'll take this mic. I think we've got to be careful that we're not, the PhD is a very valuable qualification, and I know what they're saying because I've interviewed people and you ask them a question and everything, the answers always come back to what they did in their PhD, and it's almost like you got to break the thinking out of the box. So you have to break the box so they use their thinking and their problem solving outside of the PhD box. And I think that's more the thing, because like these guys have all got PhDs and they're not saying don't get one.
I do not have one. So the message is coming from me, but I'd like to think it's not self-interested. Look, I think there's a whole lot of problems the business needs solved before you get to PhD level problems. I think that's another reality. And so like, I think one of the problems we've had in data science as a career for the last 15 years is it's like businesses decided to set up hospitals and they said, what we want is just a team of surgeons. And then everyone walking in the door needed like a nurse or maybe a doctor, but very few people needed the specialized surgeons. And the surgeons were resentful because, of course, they knew how to do the doctor stuff. They had to pass through that level to get to this level. But they were being dragged down into doing work that they're technically capable of doing, but it bores them. And it's not a good use of their skills. So I think there's been this huge mismatch. And I think we've addressed that through different types of specialization, and businesses at large will address that through having a certain number of data analysts and data engineers and BI developers and visualization people for every one data scientist. So yeah, I think there's been a big mismatch which hasn't served I think many people that well historically. Not at all to devalue the PhD.
My name is Hendra. I lead a small team of data scientists in a startup. So we have collaboration with UNSW, quite deep in terms of machine learning and AI. We sell AI software for business lending to banks. We sell some in Australia and New Zealand. Now we're expanding to US. I have difficulty to recruit. So what we like to recruit is someone who can do research, can also switch to product development, can switch help in the client engagement. So three things. It's kind of a, well, it's kind of a looking for senior data scientists that can be quite flexible, doing research, jump to talk to the research team with a few professors that we have collaborated with UNSW. And then jump to the product development, talk with the engineer, and then jump into client engagement, talk to client, which is our bank client, which is some of the bank here, and we have also client in US. So how would you suggest what would be best to recruit? I'm kind of run out of my network.
Not a question for Greg. Greg, do you want to take that one?
I think we should discuss it after the meeting. That's it.
Do any of our panelists want to
talk to you, Sam?
Yeah, so panelists who want to have a shot at that one? Sounds like a startup question.
What I would say is it's a good example of what it's like to work in a startup. So if you're starting your career and you're thinking about, I'd say one of the dimensions you should assess is what's the size of the organization, what's its maturity. If you want something that's very well structured, I'd be aiming for a larger organization where there's an existing team and practice and ways of working and all of that sort of stuff. If you really want to get your hands dirty and have something that's much closer to chaos, then a startup is for you. And there's something in the middle. There's a growth organization that's kind of got product market fit and cash flow and a business model that's just trying to grow. And that's
Those
an interesting compromise.
Those individuals are hard to find. They're either enterprise, they've grown up in startup. You want someone in between, someone that might have had both experiences.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
It's quite hard. I tried to find it, and I was thinking maybe it doesn't exist.
Does it exist? I think there needs to be flexibility. So you need to flex with regard to what's your most important thing you're looking for. What will you give and take on? Yep. So there's a bit of flex there. And look, data science is all about growing, learning. They learn every day. Yeah. I think the hardest thing to learn is probably the softer skills and the client engagement, if that's what you're looking for. Yeah. We can talk about that.
Okay, can I have a take on this question as well? Very interesting question. So I will answer such, but Greg has even more things to talk to you about afterwards. So how about the title data scientist? Why are you looking for a data scientist when 2 out of the 3 skills are not data scientists? Shouldn't you look for engagement officer, whatever that has a bit of analytical skills, right? So where I wanted to get maybe Greg's opinion as well is, how is the title data scientist evolving in time? I understood, for example, right now in the United States, they are hiring analyst data engineer, that is a combination of 2 skills, yeah, analyst and data engineer. So maybe that's something that Greg can help us with.
Yeah, no, sorry, Stefan's just asked a question. Oh, look, ever since I came back in 2012 from London, I thought data scientist was quite an out there sort of terminology. Data scientist can mean so many things to so many people. We receive CVs of people who are really good at Excel. We're a data scientist. Yeah. So it really does come down to, the term has changed, definitely. Yeah. I mean, many years ago, there's no machine learning. Yeah. We're now moving into AI. Yeah. So terminology is going to change. I think it's just the tool sets that you're looking for. This role is very difficult. And I agree with Stefan, it's probably something different from a data scientist. Yeah. Or someone who can do data work for you. We will talk about that.
Sorry, before we get.
Thanks. I just want to make a quick comment that as a startup, you probably should have an investor. We do. And it should be an investor who's got a good network so they can find people with the right skill sets. Because if they've got enough money to invest, they've also done that kind of stuff before, and they do have a network of people they know or people they know who know the right person. I've been through that.
We're getting on to last questions, folks. I think we'll allow 3 more.
There we go.
Thank you.
Sorry.
All right, sure.
No, the mic.
Hi, my name is Ash. Just for Debbie. Do you guys pay taxes? Is that it? Serious question though. You probably have access to one of arguably the largest data set there is. How important is ensuring the security of data when you're looking for recruits? And is there something that they can demonstrate in previous history, or how do they call out that they maintain data security?
That's an excellent question, because data security and data ethics is actually the centric in our operation. So anything that I can prove that data security actually very important in our very important in our organization is we haven't actually seen any data leaks from the ATO, right? So far you have seen that there's a lot to come from other organizations, but you haven't seen anything from ATO. So, and also like this is just an example, but the data security is so strict at the ATO. To the degree that I feel really annoyed, to be honest, because you know that because of the data security issues that stop us from doing a lot of things, but we are actually doing that in a responsible way. So that's what I can say, that we have the chief security officer, we have the security branch look after all these issues.
Okay, next question.
Okay, so there's yeah, my name is Ayman. There's been a lot of questions regarding like PhD, so I hope this isn't getting too boring. But okay, so this one is going to be directed towards Stefan because he's done a PhD and now he's in corporate. Well, yeah. So I'm a PhD student. What it means is that I've never done like a real job in my life, but I am also like using a lot of data and ML in my work, even though it's not got computer science in the degree name. So what should I be looking for? What kind of opportunities should I be looking for? What to get into this world of industry, corporate, data science, ML, etc. Thank you.
Yeah, interesting question. I'm afraid my answer will be not what you're expecting. My view on PhD, you do a PhD because two reasons. One, main reason you want to remain in academia. To become a professor, you need to have this degree. Otherwise, it's very hard to get. Also, there are exceptions. The second thing, you do a PhD because you are very passionate of something. After 4 years, you are one of the 10, 15, 20 persons on this planet who is an expert in something. Why not make a startup and sell that thing? Why do you need to go to someone else to put their problems in your framework, break your box, and so on? Why? You have such freedom. So if I were you, like I did when I was at that time, I just made a startup after my PhD.
Thank you. Maybe I'll ask follow up.
Sure, I'll be around. So.
Can I also answer your question as well? I do have a PhD, so that's why different views than Stephen. So I actually think that PhD is really important. So in our data science branch, I think around half of our data scientists have PhD actually. It's not just like PhD is going to do the same problems, you're going to resolve the same problems. But the PhD actually gives you the opportunity to learn, to grow your capability, to have your problem-solving techniques. So you're able to actually apply all your thinking, all your critical thinking to resolve different problems, and using a really solid foundation to able to learn new technologies. So I actually think that a lot of us benefit from our PhD study a lot. Actually, the long run in your career.
Last question. Kieran.
Yeah, so my name is Aruna. I'm an undergrad doing physics and data science at the University of Sydney. So physics and data science, already a very diversified kind of thing. So what I want to ask you is that, are you looking for people who are generally good at a lot of things, or are you looking for people who are really good at one particular thing? So, for example, should I become really good at like programming, just math, or should I be just good enough at like programming math, for example? Thank you.
Do you have recipients in mind?
Anyone.
All right, Stefan.
Okay, again. Let's see. We do it data science way. We try no formal methods here. Very good question. It really depends on the company and on the specific group and need where you're applying. If given the choice, of course, have more skills than one, because this means you learn things in more domains. You can use information from different domains to solve the same problem. Yeah, people have solved the same problem under a different name in a different domain. You know two of them, you have an advantage. Now, the examples that you are picking, that's something that you should be careful. So, in my view, programming, Python, in today's world, that's like ink. If you don't know Python, you don't exist in data science, right? Because let's see, how are you going to do things with pen and paper, right? So programming as a skill, take a few weekends and you learn it. That's it, especially if you have a mathematical background, then you know more about what programming is. So, okay, you're good to go. Whatever data, so when you have programming and when you have your, whatever data science means, is it statistics, actuarial, whatever it is, that field, be a master of it. Spend some time to understand about the business. For example, all these universities here, they send students to large organizations as internship. Go for one of those. I had many such students, I still have in all these organizations, large organizations I've been. Every single one of them, when I asked them, what do you want to put in your development plan for the next 3 months? All of them put AWS certification. My friend, you are in a company that is a bank or a telco or whatever. Learn the main thing that you can do here. You can do AWS certification at home. You don't need to be in a bank or in a telco in order to get that. In these domains, for example, I don't know, in a bank, what do you like? You like investment, you like whatever. Pick that thing, become an expert in that. And afterwards, when you go to the job market, you have the English, so basically Python, you have your data science, whatever it is. Plus, you know how to create, I don't know, credit decision engines. You are a rare candidate now, right? So Greg will talk to you immediately afterwards. I hope this answers your question.
Okay. It's been quite an evening, hasn't it? Can you please all join me in thanking our panelists? But also, let's thank our shadow panelists who've also, and Greg Pearl, of course, who've contributed in such a valuable way. And finally, let's not forget the people who've contributed so well by asking good questions. Now, this has been kind of a different session. Usually we just have speakers. I just want to know, using that democratic approach again, who wants more sessions like this? I'm thinking specifically of one more focused on startups rather than corporate, because we've had a lot more about corporate and government in this one. Who wants a startup career session? Who wants me to not do this again? It's okay. No, don't feel shy. Don't feel shy if you're missing. Well, yeah. Do you like the panel approach? That's the other thing. Who likes the panel approach? Thanks, Greg. All right. Okay, that's good to know, because I think in about 2 or 3 months we'll try it again, but with more of a startup focus, because I think that was not so well represented. Thank you, Hendra, for standing up there. I might ask you to be on the panel for the startup one. Well, it sounds like you're after unicorns, actually. Oh, okay. Well, I think Greg is going to be very helpful in that regard. The other thing is, yeah, I'd like to hear from you. I'd like to hear what you did like, what you didn't like, what you'd like to see more of. If anybody has something to present, I'd like to hear from you as well, or any other feedback. I think we have, what, 10, 20 minutes left to just sort of hang around and talk. Thank you all very much for coming and making Data Science Sydney a continuing success. Thanks very much. This is where I leverage my connections and highlight skills. Why not? Because it's in the past. That's